Welcome to Aircraftprofiles.net video podcast. This time about the F-4N Phantom of VF-201 Hunters. Now, in this episode, I'll be talking a bit about the new profile that's been added to Aircraft Profiles. I'll be showing you a bit of details. I'll be talking about the differences between the B model Phantom and the N model Phantom. And lastly, I'll have a little surprise for you, so make sure to stay tuned to the very end. Now, here we have the F-4N Phantom of VF-201 Hunters as they appeared in 1978. Well, it depicts a Phantom that looks very, well, contemporary for the late 70s. If we start here at the very tip of the aircraft, it got a black nose as they usually do, and this wraparound black area anti-glare panel here became more and more common toward the late 70s. From the top of my head, I know the Freelancers had it, VF-202 had it, and several other squadrons. I believe the Black Knights also had this sort of wraparound black area up here, and an entirely black cockpit. Also something, well, the canopy struts or whatever they're called are black on this one, and that's also something that became more and more common toward the end of the Phantom's service period. If we work our way toward the rear of the aircraft, we find what can we say about the anti-skid panels here? They're dark gray. That's also a late model Phantom feature. And back here we have the chevron on the tail here, which was red for most of the aircraft in the squadron, but of course this catbird here has the multicolored bands on the chevron instead, to mark that it is the catbird. One unusual feature about this aircraft is that the tailcoat here is blue, and I can't remember I've ever seen another Phantom in the US Navy, well, apart from some of the bicentennial special schemes that were colored other than black. And now we're talking about the unusual features. One of the most unusual features about this aircraft is undoubtedly the Modex number here, 1000. It is a catbird, so it should be 100, but 1000, I don't know why that is, that they've chosen to make a 1000 Modex number. There's no doubt a good reason for it, but it's the first time I've seen it. So if anybody out there know why this is, that they got this 1000 Modex number in this catbird, make sure to let me know in the comment section. Yep. If we move closer, we'll see that the aircraft here, as I've talked about in a bit more detail here, with the unusual Modex number and so forth. But one of the things I wanted to talk about here is the differences between the N and the B model Phantom. The easiest and most easily recognizable way to distinguish between an N and a B model is, of course, the ECM antenna on the intake here. However, it was not all BN models that had the ECM antenna fitted, especially in the beginning of the service periods. So you will find N model Phantoms without the ECM antenna. And how do you recognize the difference between the B and the N model? And for that you have to look up here in the cockpit, and right here we got this little box, and I'm not sure what it is in the box or what it's called, that box, but if you see that little gizmo up here, it's an N model Phantom, and that's, as far as I know, the only sure way to distinguish the N model from the B model if the ECM antenna on the intake are not present. Let's have a look at the aircraft in a bit more. Yep, what can we say about it? Yeah, it's as a B model Phantom, it's got the, well, it's a reworked B model, so it's got the feathered exhaust here, and right up here we got the multicolored CAC bands on the in the chevron. I'm not quite sure about this, but I seem to remember that the shoehorn update here was featured on, well, both N and B models. But if this receiver up here was present and there's no blister on here but below the chin pod, I think that's a sign of a N model too, but don't well, I'm not sure if that's entirely correct. There's just something that rings a bell there. Now, for a bit of unit history, the VF210, no, the VF201 Hunters are a part of the Reserve Carrier Air Wing 20 that was stationed in, I believe it was Fort Worth, Texas, and was a unit that was responsible for training the crews of various aircraft types. Naturally, VF201 was training the Phantom crews in the back here in the late 70s, but other squadrons from the same wing would train other crews for other aircrafts, that being Skyhawks and and Corsairs and so forth. Yeah, what else? Yeah, before the Phantom, well, the unit that was a part of the wing, and the wing was established in 1970. They started off by flying the FA-8H Crusader, a very sharp-looking paint scheme they had at that time with some red colorations here and there. Very nice. I better do that sometime. Then they transferred to the Phantom. And from the Phantom, they transferred to the Tomcat. The Tomcat they received in the early 80s because it was thought that the frontline units were flying Tomcats at the time for the most part, and the squadrons that trained the frontline crews should be flying the same aircraft as the frontline squadrons, so they traded their Phantoms for Tomcats. After the Tomcats, they received the Legacy Hornets and became VFA-201, still Hunters. And yeah, well, it's a pretty standard story for a unit of a fighter squadron in regards of what aircraft they have been operating. Its responsibilities were to train crews, and on the tail here you can see it was the Atlantic Fleet squadrons that would train with the Hunters and their sister squadron VF202. If the tail code started with an N, it would be the Pacific Fleet squadrons that would be flying there. So they were trained by the VF301 and VF302, and they would have the ND for tail code. So, well, I suppose that's about it from what we can say about this profile, but I promised you a little bit of a surprise, because when I did this rendition here, I wanted to do a 3D model of, sorry, it is a 3D model, so I wanted to do a 3D scene with it. But I discovered that I had made a mistake up here in the canopy area, and well, that's not something you can see on the profile view, but if you see a top view, this area would be far too wide for the compared to what it was in real life. So I decided to rework the entire fuselage and test it out in a 3D scene, and that I would like to show you here. This is the result of that effort, and you can no doubt recognize this aircraft here. It's the exact same model, exact same textures and colors as the profile I just showed you. And I just moved it around a bit. Over here we got another aircraft from the squadron, and you can see the red chevron here, which was standard for most of the aircraft. It's got Modex number 103 over here. So this depicts a flight of 2 Phantoms low level over the ocean, and of course a bit of smoke spewing out from the J-79s, and a bit of wingtip vortex to add a bit of a dramatic effect. I hope you like this one, and of course I hope you like the profile too. Both of them will become available for sale very soon, but please let me know what you think about them, and please help me find a title for this one. I can't seem to think of any good ones. So write a comment in the comment section with the title for this one, or comments about what I've said, and and hopefully we'll see you back here and at the next podcast. Take care, and thank you for listening.